Okay, so let's get after this.
Yeah, man. Go.
Threes, the twos, and
And
the
number one,
ones.
right here, the king. And bye, yeah.
Bye. Yeah.
How's everyone doing this fine Saturday morning? Yes, we are recording on a Saturday. It has been a little bit tough and hard to get our schedules uh, kind of aligned here. Thank you for just tuning into the PS Comics I Love You podcast. I am one of your hosts, the one, the only Jared Cabacungan, aka the Dark King. And to the left, up, down, right, I'm pretty sure it's left of me now, has always been, is the one, the only.
The voice of reason at Voice of Reason 23, Kevin Pillow. All social media platforms, Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, Instagram, Voice of Reason 23.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, welcome to, Saturday
Yeah.
afternoon, but we'll call it
Yeah.
Saturday morning cartoons for the best thing. No, we're not sponsored by, it's over here, Kevin. We're not sponsored by Disney. It's just the way the artwork comes out. If you're watching the YouTube show, and by the way, as we record this show on YouTube, sorry that episode 1 hasn't been posted yet. It'll get posted. I've had I've been backlogged on video editing, and I wanted to make sure that our main series got up and that the What If got up at least in audio form so that people can have at least something to do a watch along with. But I will get the What If playlist, and I will get both episodes 1 and 2. As you listen to this, it will be available on YouTube. So, but give you guys a chance, get it set. We're going to start What If episode 2. What if T'Challa were a Starlord? In just a couple minutes. So get it queued up on Disney Plus for episode 2 on What If. And real quick, we don't do a lot of news and notes on
What ifs
on the Disney Plus on the bonus episodes, but teaser for next week's show, meaning the from our main series. Well, boy, we got a lot to talk about. We got we had, of course, when we recorded episode 53 or season 2 episode 2, we were right in the midst of the Shang-Chi premiere. There has been some new featurettes and teasers that have come out since then of for Shang-Chi, which is due out in theater in like 2 weeks from as we record this. But we also got a trailer for the Eternals, which we will talk about on our main show. But so there's a teaser for that show coming up. Is you're going to want to watch it. I'm sure JR is feverishly rewriting the script, but we are going to do the Black Widow watch along. But before we get into that, we will talk a little bit about the Eternals, because looks, oh my gosh,
yeah, it looks great.
That trailer
really
just
good.
blew everything wide the F open. And and what that may mean for a certain other species of characters from Marvel canon. So there's a little teaser right now. Let's get into What If. Episode 1, what if Agent Carter became a super soldier? Now we have what if T'Challa became a Starlord. And little background on this, we have since found out, obviously this is Chadwick Boseman voicing T'Challa. This was one of the last projects he did for Disney / Marvel Studios. And he actually, reading more about it, presented this idea. They had an idea of having him portray the Black Panther, or having him play T'Challa once again in some form of fashion. And when they announced What If, they said, well, this is what we want you to do. And T'Challa's like, what if I took over as Starlord, that it wasn't Peter Quill that's kidnapped from Earth? And Disney went, oh, that's a different spin. And so that's where we're at. This was Chadwick Boseman's idea, to have him be the Starlord. So did you have any little notes to add to that, or are you ready to get this little party started?
Let's just get into it, man.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, I know for the fact that, other than the fact that because Chadwick signed on to become it, nearly everybody from that was attached to either Black Panther or Guardians of the Galaxy, just like as voice actors, except for, of course, Dave Bautista, signed on to say, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you have when we meet some of the casting characters, right, that were, they're that are on the show, they're actually from their actors or actresses, and so
Yeah.
yeah,
The original
it's
actors, I think this
really
is like
great.
99% of the original
Yeah,
voice actors for this one.
yeah,
I've hit play. We're in the Marvel Studios crawl
yeah.
here. I still like that I almost kind of wish they would have animated the little clips somehow, some way, but I know that would have been
No,
a lot of work.
no,
But I do like the little,
yeah,
like I said, the little cartoony scribble at the end of the Marvel Studios logo.
yeah,
We then get the Jeffrey Wright Open, which, by the way, I continue to say perfect, and I cannot wait for Uatu and the Watchers to become more live action canon. We saw them in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but they did not speak. And I know that in the comics, the Watchers don't speak a lot because they don't get involved.
yeah.
Just
No,
like
no. If canon wise, if the Watchers speak, they're already disrupting the reality of that space. And not only that, but like the Watchers are humongous too. Like the ones we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they were actually relatively small. I'm talking about like 2 times the size of Hulk type
yeah,
of thing.
and
They're
and
huge characters.
and they can shrink and grow. I
Yeah, they
believe
could.
that's one of their
Yeah.
powers because I think even in Original Sin, or I'm sorry, yeah, Original
Mm.
Sin, wasn't it?
Yeah, original sin, but then you're talking about Uatu, his dead body.
Uatu.
Yeah, his dead body was huge, just
Oh, okay, because
massive.
they always kind of give the illusion. Sometimes he can be relatively human size, but then he is
Yeah,
gigantic. So,
yeah,
so where we got through the intro. We hear Uatu now talk about kind of teasing, because he is kind of a galactic being because he sees all of space in the universe and stuff like that. And he kind of teases that this is a galactic story. And we see much like in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, we see Star-Lord walking through Morag. I was
yep,
waiting for the soundtrack to kick in, which would have been really
oh,
kind of cool. But
yeah,
um, we know later down that is
mm,
very much connected to um, that the music side is more connected to Peter Quill than it is
yeah,
the character Starlord. And also the other thing too is, again, Jared, we mentioned one little thing can change the entire story. Is in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Peter Quill throws the capture device on the ground and pulls it out, whereas T'Challa goes no and holds the device and brings it to him rather than it fall to the ground. Subtle little
yeah,
changes, and then of
yeah.
course we also see this the character, I can't think of his name.
The
Um,
Korath the Pursuer.
yes, of course, who is
Uh,
hired by Ronan, still hired by
yeah,
Ronan.
yep. Played by Digimon Honsu, who also voices the character, and it's awesome to hear him come back, dude.
He's so
It's
good.
interesting. Yeah, he's great, dude. I remember seeing him in other films too, and so he's always been an amazing actor, and just to have him play this certain role of him, basically be a fanboy of
Oh, I loved it.
Star-Lord, I loved it, dude. It was a great different take on the character, and yeah, it just I'm going to like just jump around in during the episode, but I'm pretty sure for those who are listening to us right now, you probably most likely have watched the episode already because it's been a couple of days. It might be more a couple of days, just a little bit more when you guys listen to this podcast. And so, yeah, just overall, for me, the biggest stark differences is just how T'Challa is gonna always be T'Challa, and how he carries himself as Star Lord. He is revered. He is absolutely freaking revered, as he should be
Yeah,
in that role. And just even with Cora at the Pursuer, he's just full on fanboying him, man. Like that's crazy to think about. He's fanboying this this very distinct character in T'Challa, or what he's soon to be known as Cha, which is that was a great little tidbit right there. I thought that I heard. I'm like, oh, Cha, okay.
I thought that
And
was interesting, and
yeah,
and then she stuck with it, meaning obviously a full foreshadowing. We get to see
yeah.
a new version of Nebula,
Mm-hmm.
or is it Nebula? But we don't know.
It's Nebula. It's
It's
Nebula. It's
Nebula. I know that
100%
there's
Nebula.
people that are out there
It's
saying that it could possibly be
uh,
what's her name from
Gamora.
Loki. No,
Oh
that it could,
no, no,
because
no.
in the comic books,
Uh-huh.
Ravonna Renslayer, who
Oh
becomes the Terminatrix,
yeah.
takes on the embodiment of Nebula in a blonde wig in the comics and infiltrates the Avengers, only to later, of course, reveal herself that
As
she was Ravonna Renslayer. But that might be too much of a deep cut.
No, it's definitely one of those things where like it's how would well granted for those who don't know now, yeah, Thanos is in this is in this particular arc, and the way Thanos's arc, the way that Thanos is portrayed here is much different from what he is in MCU canon, and so just because of that, because of Thanos being different in this version of the What If, everything else is drastically different. And that includes still a very touchy subject for Nebula, but like it's still very much that strange father-daughter relationship where they're estranged or some certain sense, and there's still some history there, but it feels like they can work through it type of stuff. Yeah. And so that's just a different aspect too. So I feel like this Nebula is very much the spy. You know, the very much felt like Emilia Clarke's character in Star Wars in Solo movie.
So very much felt like that. That is a great pull. Real neat little tidbit that was pointed out to me when we see Starlord's ship take off Morag, and of course segues into him being back in Wakanda in 1988. And we find out how he's removed from Earth. We all know that in the comic or in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star-Lord's ship is known as the Milano. It's named after Alyssa Milano because he is a child of the 80s, meaning Peter Quill. And well, of course, T'Challa, yes, is a child of the 80s, but he's in a different country. He's maybe not introduced to stuff like Who's the Boss. So his ship is called the Mandela, of course, named after Nelson Mandela, the leader of the apartheid against the apartheid in South Africa. And we know that in the comic books and in the movies that T'Challa is he's a history buff. He loves reading about these kind of heroes, and he is the character loves peace and harmony amongst different cultures and stuff. And then of course we segue here into what happens. They are actually looking for Peter Quill in What If but because of the density of the what's it called, the vibranium. They think they found a god, but they actually found vibranium and found T'Challa, who was wandering in the not the wilderness, but the wildlands. And we see goodness gracious, was it Korag? No, what's
he found
James Gunn's brother,
Kraglin
and Taserface. Find them, and they're both returning voice actors from the original movie. And then we get to see the Ravagers, which is now at this point Kraglin,
it's Kraglin, it's Taserface,
Yondu, which we do see. Of course, we see T'Challa, and then of course again the character's name from that's Ronan's assassin.
It's Korath. And just before,
and we don't know who's the woman.
Which woman? With
the pink hair to the side.
Oh that's
a new character.
That is a new character. They haven't. I'm trying to look up the IMDb for it. I don't.
But then at the moment, the literal big reveal, we find out that Thanos, the Mad Titan, is now a Ravager. His idea of snapping half of life out of existence is still canon. It's what he tried to do, but he was talked out of it by T'Challa. And
for those who don't before, just a little headway before that, because of T'Challa being part of the Ravagers, they just completely shifted their alignment in the Ravagers with before. But what we used to know of the Ravagers that they were kind of like mercenaries. They were pirates.
Mercenaries.
They would steal from everybody. But then because of T'Challa being such a great alignment of an individual it's just to full on, in this point, chaotic good, right? Because I'm using D&T terms now, where They would steal from the rich and give to the poor. They would try to usurp certain, horrible kingdoms and stuff. They would try to help lands that have been savaged, and so that's always been his case. And so you have the Ravagers now just being the good guys in a sense, being literally guardians of the galaxy, the literal guardians of the galaxy.
Robin Hood and his band of merry men, basically.
Exactly. And so
Or
because of
Robin
that,
Leach.
yeah, and because of that, Star-Lord is such a well-renowned name now. T'Challa is such a well-renowned figure, and you do have him going up against Thanos to a sense. And one of the pivotal lines that I love hearing that is that sometimes the best thing in your arsenal is a good argument. And I love that line because it's very true. It's
It
definitely
is.
one of the thing. That's definitely one of the things that could have been used on current MCU Thanos when he was still living, where he could look upon as like, why, what is these type of things. And I feel like that even though MCU Thanos has gone through, at this point, multiple planets and gone and fought off against probably extraordinary intellects in those planets, I feel like because of how T'Challa got in there early, and because of his upbringing and because of his view of the world, specifically in Africa, and how the history of the world there has been changed. Obviously, he was able to bring up these arguments saying that, is it truly the best plan to eradicate half of everybody just so that the other half can survive because of resources? Well, T'Challa at this point has been shown that he can say that, no, we can do certain resources because we understand the context of everything. And granted, I'm pretty sure I'm just kind of filling in certain gaps here, but like this is T'Challa's MO, man. That's his motivations. It is freaking awesome.
Well, he always said too, and all the way back in Civil War, and that he loves democracy, he loves diplomacy, but he doesn't understand the politics side like his dad did. And
Yeah.
so his ability to like you said, to the best weapon. What did you say? The best weapon sometimes is a good argument.
The best weapon is sometimes a good argument.
And we saw that a little bit in Infinity War, where Thanos did debate, so to speak, with Doctor Strange, which was one of my favorite scenes, where you do get to see there is a quote unquote human side, and I know he's not a human, he's a Titan, and he's from a different planet, but you get to see that his idea is rooted in good, but like the theme throughout the show is it's still genocide. We do see that the big bad, at least in this episode, is Tenelir Tavan, the Collector, on steroids.
Awesome. Basically.
And again, a slightly different twist than the MCU version. It is still, people were like, "Oh my gosh, it's too bad they couldn't get Benicio del Toro." No, that is Benicio del Toro. It's just a slightly different, and we don't get to see his over the top, very flamboyant version of the character. He is still very flamboyant, but he is I always say he's kind of like he's like a musclehead kind of version of the Collector.
He's incredibly ripped. This is definitely a different version from even the canonized Collector from the comics, where if you remember in Unworthy Thor, right, the Collector there, he had Stormbringer. He had I forgot whose axe was that in Stormbringer. It was
Stormbreaker in the comic
Beta Ray
books
Bill.
Is Beta Ray Bill's, and it was actually from a different universe.
It was that's right. It was that Mjolnir was Ultimate Thor, who died in the Ultimate universe. But before that Collector is actually a very slim down looking, and of course it was a couple of years after our first appearance of Collector in the MCU, and so it looked a little bit more like Benicio del Toro. He looked a little more fitted, a little more kind of laid back. He was still very extravagant in a certain sense, but we always see that if the live action interpretation of a certain character they have tend to be adopted inside the comics, because you just have continuity with it.
I just now noticed this along the Collector's neck. I wonder, it looks like Project Centipede. It looks like he might be on a super soldier. He might be a super soldier. So again, those who don't know what Project Centipede is, it goes back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There was a line, and it was kind of, they used it a little bit in Iron Man 2, is a fusion into your spine or your body, and it helped you heal and rejuvenate body parts. Like there was a person, like a soldier, who lost their arm in battle. It almost used this power to rejuvenate the arm, the limb, almost kind of like what Lizard does in Amazing Spider-Man 1. Real quick though, we're in the scene where we meet Howard the Duck. This is the most Howard the Duck we've seen in the MCU. It is voiced by Seth Green, the original voice actor, who is given credit as the who's been given credit for playing Howard the Duck in both Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, 2, and Endgame. Even though he does not speak in Endgame, he is given a credit because Howard the Duck does actually exist in Endgame. We also see the Dark Order is now working for the Collector. And we do know they were still the child of Thanos, that they actually did work with him when he tried to do the snap, but when he went straight, they went to work for Tenavir. We also see a call. Real quick, little Easter egg. We pause this real quick. When Howard the Duck and T'Challa separate, he ponies up to a bar. You might recognize the bar because it is a replica of the cantina scene from Star Wars, and the robot serving Howard the Duck is the robot that serves Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok. So, and also real quick, the scene where when T'Challa gets loose and he gets into a hangar with different space vehicles, there is multiple vehicles that we see, including a version of Star-Lord's vehicle, the Milano. We see a Nova Corps, like the star-shaped ship, a couple other ones, but the one I didn't notice. Oh, we also see that one that that big like indestructible ship that the bad guys drive. The characters that we saw with on Morag that have he goes, "Hey, Ninja Turtle," from the original movie, the Harrock guys. There's like a rock ship with like a V wing. We see that in there. So
there's a lot of Easter eggs specific. It's the Collector. What do you expect? It's the Collector. So
the one I never saw before, including they also have the Collector's cousin, which is known as the Grandmaster. His ship is in here, but there is a connection to a greater universe in this scene that just connected two universes. There is an X-Wing in this hangar. Plain as day. It's right above the Nova. If you're watching the scene, it's right above the Nova Corps ship. So for the first time, outside of Captain America's book in Winter Soldier, where he's told he needs to watch Star Wars and Star Trek, this actually now makes Star Wars, the events of the Star Wars, or the Skywalker Saga, canon within the greater MCU. So somewhere out there in an alternate universe, the Skywalker Saga takes place within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This thing, shit's about ready to get real, JR. So let's go back to us. But this is
just going over that. You see definitely actually there'll be a fight scene in there where they're talking about where the Ravagers with Nebula is going to be talking about a certain plan for them to steal the Fire's Ember, I think, or the Embers of something, where it's basically
Embers of Genesis.
Embers of Genesis. So basically, this whole plan is to basically go into the bank that is called the Collector's Bank and steal something that can possibly and probably just feed millions of planets through billions of lifetimes or some of that, billions of lives, where these seeds are able to just plant and sprout just basically a jungle-sized planet worth of food for forever, basically, or nearly forever, for a planet's lifetime. And so you have you have this fight team takeout in the front where you have Korath being basically punched by Thanos because of just one. It's awesome to see that Thanos is getting ribbed right from his teammates, from his crewmates, saying that, oh yeah, you're just, like you're playing my guy. It's kind of weird and stuff, and so you have to get punched. And then you see the Black Order come out, or specifically Proxima Midnight come out and kind of just quell that. And it's interesting to see Thanos get kind of like wrecked at this point, because we know the differences in power between Thanos and like how he's on par in MCU to at least Hulk, right? And you see him kind of just get kind of whooped basically by Proxima Midnight, who isn't necessarily shouldn't be that strong. Granted, yes, that this version of Thanos is probably weaker because he hasn't been training, he hasn't been in those constant battles, he hasn't been in those genocidal pacts of wanting to kill half a planet, and thus seeing Gamora and everyone else. And so that probably stopped super early in Gamora's lifetime specifically for that to kind of stop. And so he's just been with the Ravagers. He's been on these treks to do greater good with the Ravagers, with T'Challa near the helm, or basically the spokesmen of the Ravagers. So you see just this huge disparity in strength of where Thanos was in comparison to MCU to where he is in this version. So that was interesting to see. Other than that, you see a bunch of other scenes in the film, in the episode, where T'Challa, his necklace that he still keeps, but is which from his home of Wakanda. It glows and he finds behind him that we have the specific spaceship that we see in the first Black Panther movie. That I forgot what they actually call that ship.
I can't remember what it's called either, but it's
Yeah.
the ship that he's flying in when he
Yeah.
goes back in, and he goes, this never gets old.
Yeah, full vibranium. Inside of it it features it has all of the I guess the gear of the Dora Milaje in there,
Yes.
without anybody in there. And so and T'Challa sees this hologram of his father saying that he's been kidnapped, and that everything was told to him basically a lie, because what we forgot to say is that when he was talking to Nebula about this plan, Nebula was they made some other small talk about how we keep things at home, and she asked about her home, about T'Challa's home, or what she affectionately calls him, Chacha's home. And he talks about, like, yeah, Yandu brought me back home one time, and then we found out that it was destroyed. You come to find out it wasn't destroyed, and he has been taken. And that after finding out this truth, he was, of course, captured, brought into a cell with all the other Ravagers, including Thanos. And that we find out that Nebula has double crossed him, saying that, oh, it's a debt that she need to repay. And so we skipped a couple scenes.
Yeah, because we the Collector is after T'Challa. He's looking for
it's T'Challa.
And so the other thing too is going back to the what are they called, the seeds of Genesis, or the
seeds of Genesis.
That there is a growing fan theory that two things. Number one, that the seeds of Genesis is a MacGuffin, like the Reality Stone was within the liquid form of the ether. So the ether was kind of dissolved, and in it was the Reality Stone. There is a theory going around that the seeds of Genesis contain an Infinity Stone, and it has a certain green hue to it, and that the seeds mixed with the Time Stone, much like the liquid form of the ether, when you touch it, it alters your reality. That when you come in contact with these seeds of Genesis, that it instantly activates the Time Stone. So that, much like in the comic books, for those of you who don't know, there was a series that came out a few years ago called Infinity Wars, and in it, a different version of Gamora, spoiler alert, is the one trying to gain the Infinity Stones. And I think after the Infinity Wars, where the Infinity Stones are all garnered, because that I think in the comic book continuity, they were destroyed, and like small particles were spread throughout the universe. They're recollected, and then at the conclusion of the Infinity Wars, they actually kind of switch. Like the space stone does this now, and so their usage and then the different colored versions kind of alternate. So there's a theory going beyond that, maybe in What If, that the Infinity Stones, which we know Thanos attempted to gather, are different MacGuffins, or different, like, when I say MacGuffin, like in the show, they're trying to get the Power Stone. They don't say what's in the orb, but they're trying to grab the orb. And in the main cinematic universe, the orb is the Power Stone. We have seen the Tesseract. We know that the Tesseract is the Space Stone, and it was used similarly in What If Episode 1. So are we seeing maybe the Time Stone, or a different version of an Infinity Stone is within the Seeds of Genesis? We don't know. It's just a fan theory going on now.
Yeah.
And then in the teasers, though, we have seen the Time Stone, though. We've seen, or at least we've seen Doctor Strange with the Eye of Agamotto. We're assuming the Time Stone is within the Eye of Agamotto, but that's just I just wanted to throw that out there for those who comment below what you think. What is the Seeds of Genesis? Is it exactly what it is? It's
called, actually, the Embers of Genesis.
I'm sorry, the Embers of Genesis.
Yeah.
Are the Embers of Genesis just simply what they are, fast-growing seeds, or is there a more
the Embers of Genesis? The Embers of Genesis are actually freaking what's the name? The devil? What's that fucking stupid ass fan theory that we had?
The Embers of Genesis is really Mephisto. Yes, we're gonna make Mephisto happen.
It's really Mephisto. Yeah, nice.
All right.
But yeah, just continue onwards, man. It's we see this huge. We see this huge fight. We see this we see Tchalla, or Cha in this box, set out to be, a canvas piece for this blank white wall that Tivian has in his house or whatever, right? They had this conversation about it, right? And he talks about, and Tchalla talks about that in his history, people, usually bad things, or usually our people don't like being locked in cages or something like that, to that certain extent, and that actually sprawls into one of the slaves, or one of the maid slash slaves is I forgot her name. Karina,
Karina.
She's
again,
actually
same voice actor from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1.
She is voiced by the same voice actor, and that gives her a seed of some sort of thought in her brain, in her mind. And so things happen. It cuts back to the Ravagers inside in the holding cell, and spoiler alert, freaking Nebula actually tripped across everybody by saying that, Nebula comes in with the guard. She shoots the guard, saying that, this was actually part of the plan to begin with, because I told Cha that I was going to teach, that this was my whole thing. Like, we were going to use him as bait, and then he was okay with it. Well, I go take the Embers of Genesis, and so that was the whole plan. And then we have this fight scene between Yondu with T'Challa versus the Collector. And again, during this fight scene, Tivian is just cracked out. He's incredibly different from both his MCU and his in-lore or main continuity comics. Like, just physicality, he looks like he should have been this powerful in the MCU. And not only that, but like, he had a bunch of freaking like weapons to his arsenal. He had he pressed the button, and like this huge arsenal of just weapons that we all freaking see, right, was definitely from a certain timeline. And that he had Captain America's shield. He had the ebony. He had the black dagger from Thor 2. He had freaking Thor's Mjolnir. He had what else is on there? There's a bunch of weapons there. He had Hela's headdress, which said
and he had Korg's arm, severed arm.
Korg's severed freaking arm. So that means all of Thor, all of freaking, maybe all the Asgardians are wiped off the planet or wiped off the existence. He had Hela's headdress, right? Which finally someone said, or was finally set out that she develops a Necrosword. Necrosword, of course, is a deep cut where it is the first black blade of the universe. This was, of course, retcon in 2017 when Null, the symbiote god, was said that he was the creator of the Necrosword to fight against Celestials, which in Venom you see Null just freaking decapitate and kill a bunch of Celestials with a Necrosword. And in this version, he Hela's headdress was able to basically make an infinite amount of it. And so you see Tivian do that. We have both Tivian and both Tivian fight both Yondu and T'Challa. We have this rousing, father-son moment between them, because after they were arguing about that you took me away from my home and all that stuff, that they ultimately, Yondu loves his kid, saying, no, I'm not leaving out here with my kid. And so they fight. They get Tivian into a box, and they hand the controls to Karina, where Karina then unleashes all of the captives from Tivian's collection onto him. Fast forward a little bit more, we find that they escape the planet. That is then we forgot the scene where we finally get Thanos versus two members of the of the Order. He fights off against Ebony Maw, I think. Is Ebony Maw? No, he fights off against Proxima Midnight and Ebony Maw, the big guy with the hammer. He kind of gets his ass handed to him basically when he gets the two of them, and then you see Nebula come in and kind of save his ass.
Ebony Maw is the guy that's Squidward. Corvus Glaive is the guy that has the big hammer, because he's an amalgamation of two characters. I think he's originally something dwarf. In the comic books, there was a non-politically correct version of the character. So Corvus Glaive that we see in Infinity War and in game, and obviously in this show, is an amalgamation of two characters, and I think it's called like Black Dwarf, or I don't know. There's a non-PC name that the character has in the comic books.
What is the other guy's name then? I forget his freaking name.
It's Ebony Maw, which is the Squidward. For those of you,
Corvus Glaive
is Proxima Midnight, and it's
I always forget the other guy's name. It's actually not on here either on the IMDb.
It's not on IMDb. Yeah, it's not on IMDb. I will find out who it is. But
other than that, he fights against Thanos fights against those two, gets his ass whooped, they have the upper hand on Thanos. His adopted daughter comes in, it's Nebula, to try to save his ass. And she, in this case, Nebula is very much that spy. She's that, very, very high class spy that is there to, she's basically Emilia Clarke in this film. This whole freaking thing is basically, a better version of Solo. If anything, it is very much that, if T'Challa just went to space, he would be Solo, but 100 times better, honestly. And then you see this point where
real quick, you were correct. Corvus Glaive is the guy with the blade.
Yeah.
Cole Obsidian is there is, from what I understand, Cole Obsidian, who's the big guy with the hammer, is a character in the main Marvel Cinematic Universe. But then he is pulled from the show, just as I thought, from the comic books. Black Dwarf is a character from the comic books. They changed his name to Cole Obsidian. There's also a character named Supergiant and Black Swan. They're also members of the Black Order. But I think Black Dwarf and one other character are combined. But the very kind of vampire-y looking guy that actually stabs Vision in Infinity War.
He's a dark elf.
That's Corvus Glaive. You're right. I didn't mean to. Sorry, shouldn't have never second guess JR.
So basically, those where was I? Nebula comes in to save him. She puts some of the embers of the embers of Genesis into one of the guy's mouth, and just from it, these huge vines just sprout out from him and just basically take over the head of Nowhere, which is where they're at. Nowhere is from, of course, the first Guardians of the Galaxy film where they were Tibian originally was housed in, or
Yeah.
that room made his home in. They escape the planet, and then everyone escapes the planet, and then they have this heart to heart between T'Challa and Yandu, which for me was definitely the pivotal moment in the whole freaking episode, where he's like, where T'Challa's like, now knowing this truth, I don't know where I belong, and Yandu looks at him and goes, kid, seeing you do what you do, right? You could be in any planet, anywhere, among any people, you will always belong. And like for me, I felt like that was for Chadwick. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, man, that was definitely for Chad. You'll always belong. And so they go back to Earth, they go back to his people in Wakanda, and it's still there, right? It's still there. Everything's fine. They go up to see his parents. Shuri's still there. His mother's still there. The Dora Milaje are still there, and they welcome them back with open arms. And then we see this awesome scene where the Ravagers and all the, not denizens, but like the Dora Milaje, as well as the royal family, are there talking amongst each other. We see Thanos talking to Okoye about, like, Okoye goes, my friend, that sounds like genocide, because he's talking about his plan again. Like, no, it's fair because it's random. Like, no, homie, that's genocide. And we had this whole thing talking, and I think one of the last lines was I want to say his name. I don't want to say T'Challa's father. His name is his
Chaka.
name, Akaka, yeah, T'Chaka. You're saying that
T'Chaka.
T'Chaka, yeah. And then he talks about, like, how do you find my son, right? And then, like, how did you come across my son? And then T'Challa goes like, oh, when I was lost, he found me, father. And so, like, that was basically how it ended. We have this awesome script saying that, like, this is to our friend, our hero,
To our
Chadwick Boseman.
friend, to our friend, our influence, and our hero.
Yeah, our hero, Chadwick Boseman. And
yeah,
it was a beautiful episode. It
was
was
a great
an
episode.
incredibly good episode.
And we do know that the escapades of T'Challa, the Starlord, is not over. But this was his swan song, because, like we mentioned, this was a character that T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, wanted to do. I think what was kind of cool that still wasn't lost from the first movie, or from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, was that with Yondu is there's a line, one of my favorite lines in the movie goes, I may have not been your father, but I sure am. Or so what do you say? I may have not been your father, but I'll always be your daddy, or something like that, or something. Like, basically saying, like, I was a father figure to you. And so there was that implied moment in a couple of scenes, and one there where he goes, oh, I was lost and then I was found. So he still recognizes that T'Chaka is his father, his earthbound biological father, but that Yondu did raise him.
Yeah, which is great to see. And actually, even before I want to continue on Jack Boseman as Black Panther as Starlord, but then we have another end credit scene where we go to a Dairy Queen. Fixated to a Dairy Queen, right? And then we see Peter Quill, who is just Peter Quill. That's it. We're working at Dairy Queen, and who do we see at the end of that? We see Ego come up and say, "Hey, kid, I think no." Peter Quill goes, "Sorry, sir, we're closed for the night," or something, right? And he goes, "Oh, you talk about, like, you can't open for your father, right?" And it's Ego, and his eyes glow white, and then we see the ship in the back, right? And
the big egg ship, that big Rocket would call it.
Yeah, and then we have Yondu talk about, like, and this meeting here surmise the end of the world, or something like that, right? And we still see consequences of what happens. And so,
and I do
say,
episode, like, and then of course Uatu says, this is a whole different story, but that will be for a different time. Which I just loved. And I think what I like about these episodes, JR, what I like about this series is it not only is it a love letter to the fans, a love letter to creative minds that think outside the box, and I think it's also a love letter to those who grew up reading the what if stories.
Oh yeah.
I know that I talked with Mr. Z, our good friend, who is a gigantic fan of the What If books, and I told him, you've got to watch this show.
Mm.
I really think this is right in kind of in tune with everything that the What If book series uh meant to the overall Marvel universe. Um and yeah, it was probably the damn near perfect show. I know that there are still some that
Yeah.
will say like it's a bit controversial, that they changed too much. I'm like, but what's to say,
Yeah. I
what's
mean,
to
like,
say in the What If universe
yeah,
that where do you stop? Because it is what it is, exactly what it
it's
is.
what
It's
if.
What If. And
Yeah.
like you ought to said that the moment that Peggy Carter decided to stay by Steve Rogers' side, that changed everything. Same thing with here. By picking up the wrong child on Earth, that
Change
changed
everything.
it changed everything.
Yeah.
And like you
We
said, you
see.
have
Yeah.
a diplomat like T'Challa that can talk to Thanos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the uh after watching this episode, right, I kind of scoured, right, to see what people's reactions were, and I've seen a bunch of articles as well, man, saying that, like, oh yeah, the world would have been saved if T'Challa was definitely Star Lord, or like there was this huge weird demographic of people saying that, oh, it was this horror demographic of people saying that, oh, this is what happens when when a black man takes charge, and the white meat, like how we prop up white meat orca men. I'm like, bro, the hell are you talking about? This is fucking T'Challa. Because like one of my biggest interests in this, right, is that how do we have someone who's extremely prominent, incredibly intelligent, and destined to be basically king
Yeah.
handle situations differently, right? If he puts T'Challa in any fucking different in any other situation, he probably still be T'Challa and probably excel to a certain extent. If T'Challa was in World War II, right, about to get super serum, they'd win instantly. He wouldn't need that because it's freaking T'Challa.
Yeah.
And one of the arguments, right, was saying that, oh, Peter Quill then is the horde guy that kind of just fucked up everything for everybody else. Now, homie, for me, this is definitely a debate of this. This is a discussion of natures versus nurture, right? Because we got to remember, Peter Quill literally had fucking nobody. His mom died through cancer. His father left him at a young age, right? And so his only escape was music, because of that's one thing that connects to him to him and to his mother. And then he was then kidnapped by an extraterrestrial alien, and that was his father figure for the next majority of his life, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, we see him thieving, we see him do these things because he's still a kid. While T'Challa, who was literally born to be king, was given the education of a king's, was given everything, right? In the sense of like understanding humanity, understanding history, and all that, and as well as incredibly, not just incredibly privileged, but incredibly influenced and affluential in every aspect he's done, has excelled accordingly, because he's literally a freaking Disney prince. Of course he's gonna excel. This is what happens when you have great people in great positions. You become T'Challa. And when T'Challa was thrived in this role of Star-Lord, guess what happens? Everyone changes around him because he's that freaking influential. Like, did y'all forget who T'Challa was in canon in MCU? The dude literally like went through all the schools, all the high private schools of America, and aced them every single year he was in. He's that smart. He's
Yeah.
intelligent. He has an eclectic brain. He is given. He's the most technology. He reigns from the city that is the most technology advanced city in the entirety of the world, Wakanda. He has access to literally every piece of education ever. And he not only that, but he has a history of people who have been the oppressed and the oppressors. So yeah, he of course he would excel. He's a Disney prince. He's a Disney prince, a right Disney prince who who um who is the perfect depiction of who you want to see, who a role model you want in your kid's life. So of freaking course he's gonna excel better than Peter Quill. But that's the difference. The story with T'Challa is gonna be much different from the story of Peter Quill. Peter Quill talks about fatherless kids. That's the whole depiction that nobody wants to talk about. He's the one. He's the kid that he's the kid that has an upbringing who the fuck wants him. He's looking for a family, so he found a family. That's the difference. So there's this weird debate of people talking about like, oh, Peter Quill is fucking the horrid piece of shit. he couldn't save down. He couldn't talk to down. Like, bro, that you're no, it's a different story. But that was just my take on that. Yeah.
Well, we do know, according to IMDb, and again, it's not 100% sure, that episode 3 will be the Loki episode. What if Loki presented himself as to the governments of Earth as king of Asgard using all his diplomacy? So are we going to see this as a good Loki who's just there for
President Loki? Let's go.
So we'll see. That could be it. Maybe we will see President Loki, like we did hinted at, that a version of Loki in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in one of the many timelines and one of the different multiverses. Yes, there was President Loki. We saw that in the final 2 episodes of Loki. But overall, let us know in the comments below. What's that?
Oh, sorry. Will it be played though by Tom Hiddleston?
As far as I know, Tom Hiddleston is very much involved with What If. Tanya Wheelock was the actress who plays the female Ravager. I looked it up. It's on the credits at the end of this episode. There is no name to that. I'll have to do a little bit more research because the character looks familiar. And I want to say that there is a female Ravager in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and Volume 2, but I don't recognize the pink hair. I do know that actually one of the original Guardians from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, when they had that post-credit scene where there is a character that has her head shaved on one side and her hair flipped over, but it's played by almost like a it almost looks like Ming-Na Wen. It looks like she's played by an Asian character. This character in the cartoon does not look Asian, so I don't know if it's one and the same. And they would have said that. They would have said, "Hey, this is blah 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 blah. This is the original Ravager, or I'm sorry, original Guardian of the Galaxy."
Yeah, I kind of fucked myself. I kind of spoiled myself seeing who's gonna voice who inside the series, and I just see a bunch of names. I'm like, fuck, I shouldn't have seen it.
All right, well, no more peeking, because I know JR, you don't like to be spoiled. You like going in. Let us know in the comments below what you thought about this episode. If you're listening to us on the audio version, hit us up on social media.
What?
Okay, what did JR find?
Don't spoilers. I'm just saying a name. Party Thor.
Oh yeah, I knew about that.
Okay, good.
I'm guessing you know the storyline from the comics then.
Yeah, I do. I do. I don't. I didn't expect that.
Party Thor is going to be. I knew of the name of the character. It's played by Chris Hemsworth, and we've seen him in the teaser trailer where he goes, "Slow down a bit." Some of us may not know what this is about. I'm not one of them. So JR knows from the comic continuity what Party Thor is. I don't. I'm going in with this episode a little bit more naive. And we will see what that is all about, because we don't know when that episode is going to take place. It could take place in the next episode with the Loki episode. And again, let us know some takeaways, what you thought of the episode. Do you believe that the Embers of Genesis is a MacGuffin for a Infinity Stone, or is it is what it is? It was something that was in the collector's collection. Do you think Star Wars exists in a multiverse, in a different multiverse universe?
That'd be interesting.
It'd be interesting because we saw the X-Wing, but at the same time, we've seen Star Wars and Star Trek referenced in the greater MCU, of course, in Infinity War. But now we actually see a Star Wars vehicle, albeit it's animated and it's a background, kind of like a wink, kind of an Easter egg. But what do you mean by there being an X-Wing? So let us know about that. And what's going to take place with Ego? I mean, are we going to see that? I mean, we do know that season 2 has already been greenlit. They're already working on it. The only thing we know about season 2 is that Captain Carter will have a bigger input on season 2. So we do know that Peggy Carter, Haley Atwell is coming back to play the character, and that Captain Carter is going to be a big part of season 2. But what part does she have in the rest of season 1? Are we just going to see the groundwork laid out for these individual quote heroes like Captain Carter, T'Challa. Is Loki going to be a hero? Is it going to be Party Thor? Is it going to be Party Thor? We've seen Gamora teased as a possible hero. We do know from the Funko line. That there is a version of Black Widow, a different version of Black Widow in this.
Yep.
We've seen Hawkeye. We've seen Iron Man. We've seen Killmonger. What are we going to see in this?
Feel like if they're really doing this route, we just might pivot into Secret Wars much faster than we expect. Honestly.
Into what?
Into Secret Wars much faster than we expect, dude.
Could this be? And there is a theory going around with this, so let us know in the comments below too, as we'll wrap things up here, is that Secret Invasion, the show that's going to take place on Disney Plus, is a smokescreen, and that it's not Secret Invasion, that it's Secret Wars.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a theory, but I think it's not. I'm not a fan. I'm not a theorist of that. I think we are actually going to get Secret Invasion. I think Secret Invasion is going to be a cog in the wheel to Secret Wars. I think there's so much going on. But
let me get my theory just real quick. Maybe Secret Invasion actually, because we talked about before the Kree versus it was the Kree versus what is it called, dude? What's the name?
The Kree
Skrulls
versus the Skrulls.
Because this, in the comic continuity, the Skrulls, they basically take over Earth, right? They invade Earth. They capture very specific, very high high in their rank, either superheroes or government officials, right? And they take over their lives, basically, right?
Yep.
What I feel like is that maybe it's the inverse of that, because we see that the Skrulls in the MCU universe specifically are the refugees, are working hand in hand with Fury, with people from Shield, with Sword at this point, who are working with Captain Marvel. Maybe it's the inverse, where the Skrulls are actually going to help, or the Kree are going to invade Earth, right? Because we've seen them, the Kree before, they are different. I say that, just different, right? There are different versions of Kree, of Kree. Maybe they invade Earth, and then the Secret Invasion part comes into where the Skrulls, they are the ones going to infiltrate either the Kree, or help infiltrate into the Earth, where to combat against the Kree invasions. That's just the thing I'm just throwing out there.
And there's also been, and we'll definitely, as we get closer to it, we'll have more Secret Invasion. But I do know that there's been talk about too, that there's a theory that the Skrulls have revealed themselves as more of a good guy, so to speak. But that there is a bad faction of Skrulls. But at the same time, in the comic books, the Kree were always
the good guys and identified. But we've seen in different versions within the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Agents of Shield, we've seen that the Kree is, at least the Kree we've seen, have been the bad guys. So who knows, guys? Let us know in the comments below about that. Also, one thing we forget, when T'Challa was going through all of Collector's things, we did see Super Skrull. I did see Super Skrull. He looked like a regular Skrull, but he's Super Skrull, 100%.
So but I think the other thing too, when Karina releases all of those things to come after the Collector, very eerie sound came from the mass, similar to that what we hear on Sunday nights on AMC. Just saying, kind of sounded like a certain group of walkers. I'll just leave it at that. Did not sound like a horde of creatures that were under their own power. Let's just say very, very zombie like. I don't know, just putting it out there. Anyway, so all right, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to us. And I promise that if you're watching episode 2 of this, or listening to episode 2 of this, the video version of episode 1 of What If will be available as well. So, and of course, don't forget the next episode we put out for PS Comics I Love You will be episode 3 of season 2. It will be our Black Widow watch along, plus some brief news and notes. And then of course we will get episode 3 of What If next week. But as always, be kind to one another, wear your damn mask, and as like JR and I always say, dude, peace.
Cool, man.